What is up, Nerds Nation? Welcome to the Effin' Nerds podcast. My name is Nick Denizio, and sitting across from me is my dude, Martin Moreno. I know. Today we are going to review Tenet, Christopher Nolan's latest mindbender. But before we get started, if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up and click that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else, please check back each week as we try to upload new content for you guys to listen to. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. All right, guys, so there's going to be a lot to dive into for this, so this is how we're going to go about it. We're going to give our spoiler-free thoughts on Tenet, and we promise not to give anything away, because I feel like even if we did go into spoilers, no one would understand what the hell we were talking about. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to dive into spoiler territory, and we are going to give you guys a warning when we will go into spoilers. And then after you guys watch Tenet, if you decide to go see it, come back and watch the rest of the video. All right, so Martin.
Oh boy.
Spoiler-free. What did you think of Tenet?
All right, well, I know I used this reference a few episodes ago. It's the part where the mouse is picking up the corn in Cinderella.
Yes.
When he's got all the corn, he's like trying to pick it all up. That was me with my brain. It was like all over the floor. I was trying to pick it up. It's just another ambitious Christopher Nolan movie. Nolan, look, he swings for the fences.
Yes.
And he's not scared to, and I appreciate it. I applaud him for it. However, we literally... I think this is kind of the word that's being thrown around a lot. I still can't really fully understand and grasp everything that happened, so I can't really give a proper consensus, so to speak.
Yeah.
I will say that there is a lot to appreciate from this film if you turn your brain off.
Yeah.
If you just kind of appreciate the sort of the large cinematic filmmaking, it's literally a feat, some of the stuff that he pulled off. And that's classic Christopher Nolan. The guy's a world-class talent, and unlike some movies, actually, I'm not gonna say that. I'm just gonna simply say that there is a lot of Marvel in this movie, so to speak. A lot of grand shit that happens that is like you appreciate it from like a filmmaking perspective, but at the same time, it's a little tough to just kind of enjoy it in its full, in its entirety.
It's full, yeah.
Because it's just like, just sprinkles.
It's all over the place.
It's just sprinkles.
Yeah,
just sprinkles.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think this is Nolan's least accessible film when, like, at least on like a first watch, because you watch it and there were times where I'm like, all right, I kind of have it, and then something happens and I feel like it just knocks me back a couple pegs, and then I'm lost. Like by the time we get to the third act, I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
That was me by the time we got to the second act. We got like about halfway through the big climax in the second act. And it's funny because we made this joke of how, of how the film is about like inverting time. Mm-hmm. And you're literally, like you said, you're getting knocked backwards as the movie's moving forward. So in a way, that guy fucking gets you.
Yes.
He's like, ha,
got you.
You're in it. You're literally being inverted right now. And it's just like, Nolan. Oh, Nolan.
You wizard.
You wizard, you wizard.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
I will say, though, that the movie definitely requires multiple viewings, regardless of whether or not, you enjoy it on a first watch. I think it's one of those movies because, like, if you're like us, we like to rewatch movies. I know plenty of people that love to just watch movies once and then that's it. They have no interest in revisiting again. I love rewatching movies. I love going back in. I love finding the little details and things like that. But this is a movie that I feel like absolutely requires 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 viewings, again, to fully grasp everything that's going on. And
multiple viewings per act. So watch the first act like 10 times.
Yeah.
Get that.
Get
all right,
that.
cool. And then go to the second act, watch that 10 times, get it, and then slowly but surely you'll make your way there.
Right. But then focusing on, like you were saying, some of just like the breaking down the aspects of it. The directing is A+. I think, all of Nolan's talents are fully on display here. I think it's one of his best directed movies, even though from a story and a structure standpoint, it's very confusing. So we can definitely get into later how we feel about the writing of the movie and the structure of it. But from just a straight up directing aspect, it's phenomenal. What he's able to pull off, the fact that everything is done in camera, there's no green screen. And it's a big spectacle to see on screen.
Out. Like that's literally him executing a vision that he had. Like it's almost like he had this in his head. how he wanted this movie to play out. He got the resource for it, and then he literally executed everything so well.
Right.
And it's just like you said, there's little to no green screen, and the fact that it was all practical and obviously tweaked in some ways.
Yeah, there's definitely CG in the movie, but you can tell everything's shot on location.
The things that he was able to accomplish from a practical standpoint, from like you said, an on-camera location directing standpoint, like it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's like just massive kudos to the guy.
Absolutely. The cinematography, Hoyt Van Hoytem, who's returning after working with Nolan on Interstellar and Dunkirk, is back again, does fantastic work here. Ludwig Göransson's score is amazing. It's probably one of my most favorite aspects of the movie is how good that score is. I know I'm going to be listening to it nonstop from here on out. The acting is from across the board. I really liked all of it. Like I didn't have an issue with any of the acting. John David Washington, who plays the protagonist, doesn't even have a name. He's just called the protagonist. Super cool. Just really like, you know, he's your hero, and you're with him every step of the way. Robert Pattinson steals every scene that he's in.
He steals the movie.
He definitely steals the movie. That's Batman. It was so cool to see him in this.
I was just like, and I'm not gonna lie, there was a point where I was like, that's my Batman. And I never thought I'd be saying that, but it is, yeah.
And he was great. Elizabeth Debicki's awesome. I think, you know, Nolan does get a lot of shit for how he writes his women characters, and I think she's probably, and just in terms of like just characters in general, because like, it could also be somewhat of a negative is that there's not a whole lot of backstory given to a lot of these characters, but she gets the most. She gets most of an arc.
Yeah, some are, but it's just like we said, the way everything's kind of structured and played out.
You don't get it till maybe later on. Yeah, but she has most of an arc, and that's kind of where a lot of the emotional stakes are is with her.
She's pretty much the main. Right. She's driving the film. Everything's through her.
Absolutely.
Much.
Kenneth Branagh plays the villain, and he's awesome.
Yeah,
I loved him in this. Yeah. He was great. He goes big.
I don't know if like maybe it's a little too early to be getting into this, but I know you were talking about Christopher Nolan's writing. I think this is him. Okay, I think this movie is literally Nolan with the least amount of restrictions.
I think so.
I think they literally just trusted him, let him do whatever he wanted. I made the joke that they were like, Nolan, what do you want to do for your next movie? Yeah. And he thought about it. He literally came on a piece of paper and gave it to Warner Brothers. And they were like, oh my God.
This is amazing.
Yes. Let's do this.
Here's $250 million.
Go crazy. And he was like, thank you. And he just like went ahead and he like did it. But he was having, you can tell he was having fun with the writing. There's a lot of comedic sort of speak moments.
It's there's a lot of funny moments in the movie.
Which is very un-Nolan-esque. Yes. John David Washington, like you were saying, I want to see John David Washington do a comedy. Yeah, I know he already did his drama with BlacKkKlansman, which has some comedic elements, but here some of his line delivery is like oddly quirky.
Yes,
he's like, oh, yeah, like you know his cadence and like his bops and the way he moves, like the way he like says some of his lines. I just want to see him like go full blown to like a comedy and like because I feel like he would like.
I think he would. Well, I mean, seeing him on because I didn't watch the whole series, but I watched a few seasons with him on Ballers, and he's good in it. Like he's very charismatic, he's very funny, so he would absolutely work in a comedy for sure.
Yeah, but even like here, just even moments where he was just trying to be like somewhat, he was literally playing like the suave guy, so to speak, and there were moments where he was just saying shit that I like sometimes where he was. Which we still don't really understand, but when he's trying to be like a seductive character, like you just don't buy it, but you don't know if it's supposed to. Like the movie itself is just like so confusing. I know. You don't really understand, but his acting and his line delivery and like I just love seeing more of him. Like I really loved him in BlacKkKlansman, and seeing him here again, I'm just like I love this dude. I'm so ready to see so much more of him. But yeah, we were asked in Joshua who was going to steal the movie. Like, was it going to be Robert Pattinson or John David Washington? I thought it was going to be John David Washington. I thought he was the lead for a reason. I thought it was going to like we were going to leave and it was going to be his movie. But to me, every single time Pattinson was on screen, I was just more engaged, and I was looking forward to the moments when he was going to come back.
Yes,
and I just loved every single second of him in the movie, and I'm just like. Give me a movie on this guy. Like,
it was also too like I just love how much he just like, and that's the thing with when Nolan has a movie come out and there's a reason why he goes back to specific actors to bring them back. Like it was nice seeing Michael Caine again, giving
which again was like one of like the early sort of comedic moments in the movie.
Yes, absolutely.
When they're just having this like silly kind of banter and then he's like cracking jokes at what he's wearing, which is not really a spoiler, but I was just like, this is so different. Like this was literally I think at that point, right after that scene, that's really when I was like, dude, they literally let him do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah.
And he just took full advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other aspect that I thought was phenomenal is the action scenes. But the action scenes were absolutely top notch. And I would say this also goes back to me saying that Nolan, like that this is his best directed movie, is same thing with the action scenes. Some of these action scenes are some of my favorite that he's done. And not even just the whole, I mean, like when the inversion comes in, it gets absolutely wild. Like, especially when you get to some of the aspects, when they're pulling off some heists and different things like that. There's a whole scene that takes place in a hallway that reminds me a little bit of the hallway scene in Inception. Then there's a whole thing on a whole chase on a freeway that somewhat reminds me a little bit of The Dark Knight. And you just get this when as soon as they introduce the inversion into it, it just completely flips everything on its head and gives you something that me personally, I haven't seen anything like that done before. And I absolutely loved it. Like when I was watching those scenes, I was like, oh my God, this is why I love coming to the movies. This is why I love watching Nolan movies, like just for this kind of shit.
It's just like those. That's what I'm saying. Like when we're talking about when I was talking about like the sprinkles, like the sprinkles, the ice cream was for me. I'm still trying to figure it out, but the sprinkles on the ice cream,
Metaphor.
were really good.
Yeah,
like some of these little sprinkles that were on there. But in terms of like the context and how it worked into the larger picture, like it was you're just literally watching like sort of you're watching scenes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like if you were just to like be dropped in the movie and you just saw the scene, it wouldn't be any different than watching because you kind of don't know what's going on, but it just looks cool.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I would say that this is one where Nolan really plays with the structure, and the thing with Nolan is, and I've seen him get a lot of hate, especially for this movie, because of how the movie's structured, and like this really isn't going to be a spoiler or anything like that, but I think what Nolan's doing, if I had to guess, is just knowing the type of director that he is and the type of artist that he is he likes to try to play with how you can tell a story. Whether or not it's going to work, that's one thing, but then it's like you said, how he takes big swings. So he's trying to figure out new ways to tell a story.
Yeah, and he's always just pushing the envelope.
He's always just pushing the envelope. And sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. And whether or not here it works for you or doesn't, that's up to you. But I do appreciate the fact that he is trying to, push these boundaries and figure out what works and what doesn't. And this is only going to make him a better director going forward with what he can and can't do. This is going to make other people better directors by seeing what he can do and being like, you know what? I appreciate what he's doing here, but I think I can do it this way and I think I can do it better. You know what I mean? Like that's the type of influence that he has going forward, which is why he's so revered in the industry, why he has such a big fan base, and yeah.
Hashtag trendsetter. Influencer. But yeah.
I was going to say, is there anything else you want to jump into anything else you want to comment on before we go into spoiler territory?
Well, I mean, are we going to give our grade before at the end, or are we going to give our grade now?
We'll probably give it at the end. So okay. we will give our score at the end, and on YouTube I'll make sure that I actually like tag it so that if people want to like skip to the end, they can just easily skip to the end to what the score is.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's pretty much in terms of like general consensus. That's kind of where I stand. It's like I appreciate some of the stuff that he was going for. However, just as of now, in terms of like the larger picture, I just had a lot of issues with the movie.
Right. All right. So now, guys, we're going to jump into spoilers. Spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, leave. Get out of here.
Get the fuck out of here!
Or come in.
Or come in, depending on if you're inverted.
Yeah, if you're inverted.
If you're inverted right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to now jump into spoiler territory. And so I guess we'll do it like how we normally do our reviews. We'll give our positives, we'll give our negatives. We can really dive into some of the nitty gritty details of it. And so let's do it.
Let's do it. For starters, we sat down, right?
Yes.
And I was like pumped. I lost the bet. I was like, whatever.
Martin lost on the burrito.
I'm ready to see a Nolan movie. And the second we start off, I was just so in.
The opera
scene. The ticking clock, which you get like in almost every single fucking Nolan movie.
Right.
The way they come out, they line up, this score comes in, everything just felt... I feel like Nolan guns are like its own thing.
Yes.
Like the Nolan gun sounds and Nolan gun deaths, I don't know, like you can literally take all his, like from like Inception, the Dark Knight movies, they're all like the same.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can probably put them together and you think like it's all like from one movie. But everything just felt so... Nolan.
Yes.
And then when the movie starts playing out, we start getting some audio issues, which is kind of like a Nolan thing.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely dive into that for sure.
Right, but that's kind of where the problem started because for me, We get some dialogue that I couldn't really understand what was going on, and the movie is fucking fast.
Yes.
The movie just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. So in those like few seconds that I was trying in my brain to figure out what they were saying and what was going on, I got inverted.
Yeah.
Because as the movie was as the movie was going forward, I was going backwards.
Yep.
And then I kept trying to catch up, and I just kept going. I just kept getting more and more backed up to the point, like I said, when we got to, because we're in spoilers now, when we got to the heist scene, by that point I was completely.
Which heist scene? The art.
The first one.
Okay, when they're at the Freeport.
Yeah, because when they're doing the bungee thing, which is kind of cool. I was still somewhat trying to get a hold of what was going on.
Yeah.
But by the time we get to the Freeport, at that point I was just lost.
Yeah.
I had complete. At that point, I made the decision to just turn my brain off. I'm just gonna watch this because I can't really try to think everything.
Well, I was gonna say it's funny you say that because like. One of the things that I knew going into it, I didn't tell you this, but I knew that the movie had a fast pace just by reading what some of the people were saying, and that the audio was tough to hear at times, especially if you're watching an IMAX because of how the mix is, for whatever reason. And I was reading more into this about how Nolan mixes his audio. It's a very unique way, and there are professional audio mixers in the industry that actually love how he does his mixes, how it's a very realistic and gritty feel to it, in terms of not being able to pick up the dialogue, everything like that. But for a movie like this, as complex as it is, it's very tough when you're trying to understand what's happening and not knowing. And also when people are talking and they're giving away very plot heavy, when they're having very plot heavy discussions, you're not being able to pick up on what they're saying.
Right.
So for me, when it starts and as it's going, I'm like, all right, let me just pick up at least a little bit of what they're saying so I can try to piece together how it's going. And I was doing pretty good up until I think, yeah, I mean, it was just like moments. It was moments in when he first meets Elizabeth Debicki and they're talking about the art. When he's with Michael Caine and they're talking about like when they're basically discussing like who Kenneth Branagh kind of is, like I'm picking up pieces of it, but I'm like, I don't really fully understand what the hell's happening. The dinner scene
between him and Elizabeth Debicki, I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? And I was like trying to get, and then we get that really cool action sequence in the kitchen. So I'm like, all right, let me enjoy this. All right. And then I try to go back to like deciphering this Nolan code.
Yes.
And yeah, like I said, man, once we got to that Freeport scene, I'm just like, I was completely done. And that's not like me. I'm not the type of person to turn my brain off in the movie.
Right.
I like to understand what's going on. I like to appreciate, even if it's a shitty movie.
Right.
Like if there's an awesome scene in a shitty movie, I at least want to understand it in its context, you know?
Right. And at least appreciate that scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then you can say that about a gazillion movies, about how like you can have a shitty movie, but you have certain scenes that stick out, certain scenes that are good. But so I still want to understand the film, but I just couldn't. Like I just literally, we were about, by that point with the Freeport, it's almost like an hour in, and I'm just like, look, I'm literally just trying so hard to understand. Like I don't want to do this, but fuck it. And I went into the little SpongeBob's in my brain, and I told him like, guys, go home,
take the night off.
Take the night off. It's fine. Come back tomorrow. We'll figure it out. And then from there, I was just cruise controlling, and so much cool stuff was going on. I was like, that's really cool. I don't know what's happening, but it's really cool. And that was just literally my mindset for the rest of the movie from that Freeport point on.
Right.
That's just how I was. And I'm like, fuck it. Let's do this.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from because the movie is very confusing, but I think it's designed that way. So I wasn't upset that I was confused and had
maybe
no
not
idea.
confusing, but complex.
Well, it's complex.
Designed as a complex movie. I don't want people to think that, like, for all we know, Nolan could literally be fucking with us.
He could
but I think it is designed as a very complex, depth, like, ambitious film.
Well, I also think it goes into him, like what we were saying before, him pushing the boundary of storytelling, because I like that he's giving you a movie that is challenging and that you might not understand what's going on the first time, might not even understand what's going on the second time, but if maybe eventually you'll start to get it the more times you watch it. So I appreciate that aspect, that the movie has this sort of rewatchability to understand, because when I came out of it, I didn't know what was going on, but I wanted to know what was going on. I want to understand it. I was watching videos all night trying to figure out what the hell I just watched, what was going on. Like I can't wait to go back and rewatch it, to keep diving into it and try to unpack what is happening. But yeah, it's It's definitely something that is not going to be for everybody. I will say that, because there are people that aren't going to care after they watch it, you know, to want to unpack it.
I feel like it's one of those things where people are going to ask, like, is this necessary? Like,
exactly.
Why did we get this? Like, we had all this resources, all this money to do whatever you wanted. You gave us some great films. Like, why did you have to go ahead and do something like
and
this?
make it like this?
Yeah. And look, that's everyone. I'm kind of like on the sense. I'm kind of like on the boat of both people, because I think there are the Nolan haters and I think there are the Nolan enthusiasts.
Yes.
I think the Nolan enthusiasts are going to just go ahead and just, like, I'm not saying you necessarily, but are just gonna go in there and say like you did that, like, this was a masterpiece. I don't care if whatever, like, you know, it was an achievement. And those people, I see some of those people the same as I see some of the people who saw Lighthouse. Like, people who went in there and saw Lighthouse and just, look, I'm sorry. I'm really, like, I feel like 95% of the people who came out and were just giving the movie this praise,
this amazing praise,
didn't buy it at all. At all. I just saw, like, you went in there, you saw something different, cool aspect ratio, cool black and white.
Really good performances.
And you just came out like, it's like fucking Brooklyn hipsters. Nothing against Brooklyn hipsters. I love Brooklyn hipsters. But they're like, bro, try this water. It's like in a box. It's like,
it's also really funny that Pattinson has been in 2 movies back to back now that are just
well,
like,
that just goes to show the kind of, because it's very much like Nolan. Pattinson likes to challenge himself. So he's like, I want to take on these roles that are going to give me help grow as an actor. And whether people get it or not, that's completely up to them. But it's like that. Some of the stuff that I saw, because I watch and I listen to reviews and all that stuff after I see the movie. I don't like to go into the movie knowing stuff, because I don't want to like fuck myself up.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff that I saw, I just didn't buy some of what these people were saying.
For the Lighthouse?
For positive, no, well, for Lighthouse.
Yeah.
But some of like the positive reviews I saw for Nolan, I'm just like, dude, I don't buy what you're saying.
Oh, you mean some of these people that came out saying like, this is
they
like,
were just like, come, like, this was amazing and blah, blah. I'm like, I don't believe that you understood it. I'm sorry. You might have. But for me, it's just one of those feelings where you kind of understand someone's like genuinity, like whether they're being genuine or not, or whether they're just kind of like sucking on the teat.
Right.
You know, and I felt like a lot of these people, very much like Lighthouse, were just kind of sucking on the teat of this movie. I felt like there were maybe a few sort of like honest, genuine reviews that I saw, but so those were kind of like from the positive perspective. From the negative perspective, same thing.
Right.
People were just ready to hate it because for whatever reason, Nolan does have his haters, and that's fine.
Well, he has haters, and then I think because of the fact that this movie was at one point touted as it was going to be the savior of cinema from coming back from COVID, and then there was a lot of issues of back and forth of delaying the movie, and then the fact that they decided to stick with their guns and have it come out when things aren't 100% safe. I think there are also people that hate that aspect. I think there's people that hate Nolan, that he pushed for this movie to come out as early as it did. And I think
some people want to watch the world burn.
And you're just going to have like that bias, you know what I mean? That bias of like, how dare you release this movie while all this stuff is going on, you know what I mean?
And you want it to fail. Like,
exactly.
I understand that people want it to fail. So like they want to see like the bad reviews. So they go in there and they kind of suck off of that teat of just being bad.
There's a lot of teat sucking.
A lot of teat sucking going on, just putting the movie down. So from both sides, I saw reactions and reviews that I just didn't buy.
Right.
That I didn't get. But I just don't understand. Like, to me, Nolan might understand this.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if he does. I think he was just a little trying to like. I wouldn't be surprised if he still doesn't really have the complete grasp on what the story he was trying to tell, but he went for it anyway because, like you said, he's trying to push that boundary. Like, okay, let me give the best version of kind of this idea that I have in my head to the people and just kind of move on. Like, let me test myself as a director. This story is challenging in itself, even to me. Let me see how good I can do it. And then, like you said, that can possibly influence other people. Like, I appreciate your like, I accept this challenge, Christopher Nolan.
Exactly.
Now let me go ahead and maybe do something different. So it's just him again, just kind of pushing the envelope, setting this example of what great cinema could be. And I think on that aspect, I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate you. However, I just think I do fall a little bit into that sort of notion of like, was this really necessary that we're getting this? And it's just like part of me just gets a little turned off at it.
No, and I would definitely agree with you, because I was definitely struggling with this movie, definitely on the ride back. Like, I was going back and forth in my head. I'm like, did I like this? Did I not like it? Like what's going on here? And then the more that I read about it and started to understand it, I started to grasp things more. And there's always these movies that you watch where you're kind of on the fence about it, and you're either going to focus on the positives of it or you're going to reflect on the negatives of it. And either those negatives are going to get worse for you and it's going to outshine the positives, or the positives are going to get better for you, it's going to outshine the negatives. Now, this movie does not come without its flaws. It obviously has its flaws. And one of the things, obviously, is its audio mixing. It's really hard to understand dialogue. And I know that there's portions where they're describing something that's making sense to the story for the audience to kind of grasp on, but you can't hear what the fuck they're saying. Whether they're wearing masks or the environment, like the background noise is just really jacked up. Like it's like, and especially like when Aaron Taylor Johnson's character comes into play, he's having a conversation with John David Washington before I think they go into like that final battle. And I know what they're talking about is important, but I can't hear what the fuck they're saying.
No, and something else too. Some of the accents are a little rough.
Some of the accents are
a little
thick.
heavy, or a little thick. Yeah, I think where I first got lost in the beginning when he rescues that Russian person. Like looking back at it now, I don't think that really had to do. I don't really think that was important or not.
Well, I think the whole thing of that aspect, not that I want to sit here and explain the entire movie, but he was tasked with CIA to go in and rescue this person who was almost like a sleeper agent, try to bring them out, because what he was looking for ended up being the first piece of the algorithm.
Right.
That was kind of what I gathered.
But it was also like a test.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Like,
this is where you can get really wishy-washy with trying to break things down.
It's kind of tough to really understand, because it was a test, but not really, because the Russians are real and work for Kenneth Branagh.
Yes.
But at the same time, like that's what I'm saying. It's some stuff that's just a little tough to kind of figure out. And when you have something like that, at least for me personally, so early on, and then you're trying to crack it, and the movie's just going at 1,000 miles per hour,
right?
Then you just get left behind.
Yes.
And it's just like I'm not against like fast pacing, but it's just, again, Nolan just wanted to tell his story this way, and it's just, I think in some ways that he told it, and some ways that it was executed, and despite the fact that it's like that's a feat from a filmmaking standpoint,
right?
I think some of those ways that it was done and executed is what's really going to turn people off, and that's kind of like what turned me off too at times. And I'm like you, like I'm still going back and forth trying to figure out, because I'm trying to understand it so I can appreciate it a little bit more. But at the same time, the more I try, the more you almost kind of just get a little. You're literally being inverted. He's
like
legit fucking with you.
It's like I go back and I keep getting pulled back and forth. You know what I mean? Because you're asking this question of is it necessary for him to tell a story like this? Like why do it like this? Is it necessary? And I think a follow-up question would be like, why not? Why not try something new? Why not do it like this? You know what I mean? Like we've seen him, like I feel like if this movie had more of a linear feel to it, I think it would have just felt too much like Inception. You know what I mean? Or Interstellar. And maybe that's a knock on him for not having a new enough idea or enough original of an idea. You know what I mean? But like I think it's almost in the same sense of like Dunkirk, right? Dunkirk is your standard war movie, but how he tells it and its structure makes it unique.
Actually, that's a good point, because it's almost taking both the elements of Inception. This is taking actually all those elements.
It is.
It's taking the elements of Inception, Interstellar, and merging them. So yeah, so he's literally taking all his past experiences and forms of storytelling and literally trying
to put them all together
into one, right?
And then and it always goes back to that thing of maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but as an artist, as a director, I think you need to sometimes try, and depending on how you feel about the movie, if you think it's a fail, I think maybe it's a big fail. Not big in the terms of that, oh, it's terrible, but it's big in the sense that like this is an ambitious movie that maybe didn't work for you, but maybe it's a necessary ambitious fail. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where I think you need to try things, you need to figure things out. It's just crazy that the fact that it's cost $250 million and it's a studio movie. Like this is the most this is probably the most expensive art house movie I think I've ever watched.
Bro, totally. Yeah. I totally agree with you. And again, it's just one of those things where it's like, I can't, like, I'll appreciate a movie for its filmmaking, but if it's not a good movie, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to give it like a high score.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, kind of like, just to go back to what we were saying, this, like you were saying, this to me just kind of felt like, to be a little metaphor here, it felt like the one dude who tries to sound smarter so he says like big words.
Right.
When he can easily say it a different way. And I know that guy very well because that's me sometimes.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to clients, I'll like say shit, with bigger words just to try to sound smarter. And it kind of sounds like that. Like you're trying to sound and seem like a much smarter movie with all this like sci-fi elements in it, when in reality you could have been much more simpler. However,
100%.
he just wanted to be the smart,
Right. He wanted to try to do this a complex way.
Yeah. And that was just him. That's how he wanted to do it.
Right.
Fine. Would I have preferred the much more simpler way? Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'll never know because I'll never see that version.
Right.
But yeah, like it's kudos to him. We're going to be dissecting this movie for a long time. I feel like,
and that's what I think is probably one of the positives about the movie, is that it's not just a throwaway movie, and then even in some of his own filmography, you could watch it once and be like, cool, got it, never need to see it again. You know what I mean? Like, but with this, I feel like that it's his most interesting movie. I think it's his most intriguing movie, and it's probably even more so than Inception. Because for me, like, I know some people got there you had those people that were confused by Inception, but you would agree. I feel like Inception, even the first time you saw it, is pretty straightforward.
Inception you have both Interstellar as well. It is a little confusing, but you have a clear grasp of what's going on.
Exactly.
And then it's those Inception and Interstellar are both movies that literally within 2 more viewings you almost have it pretty much locked down. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh okay. But for this one, it's like
whoa. Yeah,
it's like just mind like
right.
bullshit.
And then you could also ask the question: if this was any other director, would you give it the same sort of?
Well, that's the thing. That's what we were talking about in the car ride home. That it's the name. It's
right.
the name Nolan.
It's
and
the
it's
name.
Like whether if his name was not attached to this,
like
who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, would I give it the sort of attention
exactly
that I'm giving this one?
Mm-hmm.
Like am I reaching because I want to understand it because it's Nolan?
Exactly, because I think as a film lover and as someone who just loves the film that he's done, you almost kind of just, let's be real here, you almost want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And that might not be fair to other directors. It might not be fair to any other movies, but that's just the kind of respect, and that's what he's earned given his filmography over the past like 15, 20 years.
Absolutely, which I think is why he's allowed to do things like this.
Exactly. That's why he can come on a piece of paper and give it to Warner Bros. And they're like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do it.
So in that sense, it's yeah. And like I was saying before, like it's a movie that I want to keep revisiting, and it's a movie that I want to understand, whether or not it's asking those questions of, does it deserve to be understood? Should we be spending this much time on it? Why didn't he just tell it like your simpler classic way? And it's just one of those things you just kind of throw your hands up and just be like, I don't really know. It's just it's why. And this is the other thing too, is I love that we have this sort of movie because of the fact that it's a studio movie, it's a blockbuster, it costs as much as it did, and it's going to cause debate. It's going to cause people to hate it. It's going to cause people to love it. It's going to cause people to be in the middle. It's going to cause people to want to research it and rewatch it and dissect it. And I think that, when it comes to movies and cinema, that's what you want. You need to have movies like this, regardless of whether you can't have everything be the same. You can't have it just be like another, like if this was another Inception, I probably still would have loved it, but maybe I wouldn't have been as intrigued by it or interested by it. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's like what you said. There's people, I know for a fact, there's people who are going to come in here, not get it, not understand, not care, and then just check out.
100%.
I think the reviewing factor for this movie is going to be so split.
Yes.
Because there's going to be like those people who really want to go back and analyze and dissect it bit by bit. And there are some people who are just going to check out right away.
Right.
Right now, this is cool because we're kind of split. You're ready to go see this again.
Yes.
I'm ready to just like let my brain set for like a while.
And then
before I go
revisit it later.
Yeah, like I literally, to be honest, have no desire to see this movie like anytime soon.
Okay.
At all. I'm just like, I saw it. I appreciate it for what it was, for what it was trying to do, but I'm just like, I need to step away.
Yeah.
Like step away.
Right.
Try to maybe recollect something, and then when I'm ready, because I'm a little sensitive. When I'm ready, I'll go back and I'll revisit it.
You see, but in a way, I kind of love that the movie is throwing so many people for a loop.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what's good, because like you have like right here, we're a prime example of like literally how we're split. Like you're going in a certain direction. Like we're being inverted.
We're being inverted again.
Nolan is just inverting everything. But you're going this way. I'm going this way. And there's gonna be so many your wizard Harry sound bites in this episode. But that's how it is. I'm literally going with this. I'm going with the blue team, and you're the red team.
I'm the red team, yeah.
Yeah, and we're just literally split, and that's just how it is.
That's the one thing that I want to talk about before we kind of give somewhat of a score on this movie, which I know it's gonna be weird to score this movie, but the relationship between John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. I don't want to get into like the nitty gritty of how the whole inversion works of when they actually met in time,
the physics of it
and everything. But the thing that I want to comment on it is a lot of people are saying that the movie doesn't have that much of an emotional investment in these characters. But with that ending, that kind of recontextualizes their relationship from the beginning, how they met, all this different kind of stuff. And I feel like that when I talk about rewatchability, I feel like going back, I'm going to feel more weight for these characters because I know of what kind of history they have. Like, and I was thinking about it and I saw some people commenting on it. And as I was watching certain videos of them trying to break it down of when they supposedly met in time and all this different other stuff, I started to feel more weight for these characters and actually care that John David Washington was so upset at the end when Pattinson was like walking away and he's like, this is the end of our friendship, but it's the beginning for you. And I was like, oh man, I was like, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, so like I kind of felt that. So
felt it.
I felt it.
I felt that.
I felt that. So that's kind of like my my comment on the movie not having any emotional stakes is, and the whole thing with rewatchability is I feel like the more times you watch it, you'll be able to feel it more.
Yeah. Well, that was also to me it's kind of like a negative because I did think that there was some emotional stakes. But however, I thought it was kind of like a stake in regards to like it's for my son or it's for my daughter, which is something that we've seen a gazillion times.
I know. Yeah.
So like that kind of emotional stake. Because like we were saying before, Elizabeth Debicki, who is great, she is essentially like the main kind of a lot of stuff is driving through her.
Yeah, she's the heart of the story.
Pretty much, yeah. And her heart, literally, the heart of the story is her son.
Right.
So it's that again, like so it's like it's for my son, it's for my son, it's for my child. And look, we're not dads. We don't know what everyone always says. Like when you become a father, you'll understand.
Then you'll understand.
Yeah. So I could imagine that it's like this sort of unimaginable, unspoken, whatever bond, but it's something that we just see all the time. So I'm like, okay, I get the emotional standpoint. However, I've seen this before many times. Yes. So it's like I don't disagree that it's not there. However, it is there. I just think that it's something that it's not necessarily new.
Right. Oh, well, I would agree with that. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else you want to discuss? Anything else you want to delve into?
I don't know, man. I can probably see again. I don't know if I could talk about this movie a lot because I feel like I would just be repeating myself over and over again.
Right.
I'll be in a time loop.
Well, and this thing too is I think the and I feel like I'm saying the same thing too. I'm like maybe once you rewatch more of it, then people can have more of an understanding of it, and then there's more things to dive into. You know what I mean?
I just think like I do just kind of want to reiterate again to go back in time just of that, just like of I guess I was gonna go back and talk about the Nolan haters again, but I don't think we have to. Never mind.
No, it's fine.
Never mind.
We'll invert backwards here.
Yeah, we'll invert it. We'll invert it backwards.
All right, Martin. So I'm actually really curious to see how you're going to grade this.
How I'm going to grade this. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the RT right now? It's like 70 something.
It's like 74. This is getting a very similar response that Interstellar had when it first came out. Like a lot of people didn't buy. When you get to the third act, people just were checking out of it.
Right.
In Interstellar, and I feel like it's the same kind of thing here.
Right. To kind of recap, there is a lot of good in this movie. The sprinkles.
Metaphor.
A lot of the sprinkles in this movie are really good. They're very tasty. I like it. However, you got to understand that in regards to the larger picture, I'm not saying that it doesn't work because I don't understand it.
Right.
So I can't really say it's not good in regards to the movie because I don't really understand. So I just think the film was very ambitious. Christopher Nolan literally took all his storytelling elements that he created, that he kind of learned and inherited from Inception, from Interstellar, from Dunkirk, and he literally meshed them all together.
Right.
And he created this sort of very complex, this story with a lot of depth, and he achieved something that was amazing from a filmmaking standpoint. Like we said before already, the fact that there's literally like zero to like minimal to like no CG, everything is practical. The scale of the film, this is not easy. Like everyone would know this. Like we're not movie directors, but we can imagine that this is not easy. And the fact that he was able to execute everything so properly, like the guy's a wizard.
Yeah.
However, despite all that, the movie and the storytelling for itself, as of now, for me, just didn't work. I couldn't get engaged. I was confused. I tried to follow along, and as cool as it was to see some of these action pieces, I couldn't properly enjoy them because I didn't know how it was working in context of the film. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, the movie as a whole, I would give it a 6.1. So yeah, right now I'm struggling if I like this movie or not. Right now I'm more on the I don't like it, but whenever I get back to it, it's not gonna be anytime soon. I know that for a fact. Whenever I get back to actually seeing the movie and learning a little bit more about it, I'll give it a better grade. But right now, if we were to cut it down the middle and we just had the acting, the filmmaking, the directing, all that stuff, and then the movie, all that stuff, like acting A+, directing A+, filmmaking A+, but then the actual film, it's like coming together, that's just where it just doesn't work for me. And it just kind of gets lost in all this weird, crazy storytelling. Ambitious, A+, but I just couldn't, it's not there for me just yet. So I'm going to give it a 6.1 for now.
And I think that's where in terms of how you watch movies and how you perceive movies and your take on specific things is going to really come into play for this movie. Like for me personally, I will always reward like ambition and, taking big swings because I feel like that's necessary in order for cinema to progress, in order for things to move forward, in order for things to be different and new. And I just think it's a very necessary thing. And I think Tenet delivers on that front, with, like you said, A+, A+ on that. I love all the acting. The action scenes are phenomenal. Directing's great. It's a story that's really intriguing. And I think it's a movie where the story might unfold better with more rewatches. Like I don't know yet. Like it's one of those things where I think I have somewhat of a handle on this, especially after, I think I have a handle on the story, especially after watching people kind of break it down and dissect it more. And I'm like, okay, this is starting to make sense now. I understand why this happens. I understand why this happens. Maybe not the whole thing, like the big picture, but it's for me, I feel like I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there. So in terms of a grade,
I probably have to, because I started watching people and I just started getting more mad because, like I said, I found the enthusiasts and the haters. Yeah. And I was just like, I appreciate you, not necessarily appreciate, but I'm like, you're over here just sucking the tea, but I don't buy that you really liked it. And you're over here not sucking the tea, and I feel like, just for no reason.
Well, that was the cool thing, too, is I found this one guy that was kind of giving a breakdown of the whole movie, and like he at the end he said that he enjoyed it and he looks forward to going back and watching it. He wasn't giving it glowing praise, but he definitely said that he enjoyed the experience and he can't wait to watch it again.
You can tell when someone's being genuine and when someone's not, and when someone's just hating.
But the one thing that I loved was that as he was talking about it, he was like, actually, that doesn't make sense. And he's like, he even came to the same thing that I am. There's just certain logical leaps you have to take, and whether or not you're willing to take them, that's going to depend on how you feel about the movie. You know what I mean?
It's a leap of faith.
It's a leap of faith.
Grow old together.
So for me, and this could be somewhat of a Nolan curve because I love this guy so much. I love everything that he does, and because of my feelings on this movie in general, whether or not I completely understood it or whether or not I think it's necessary to tell a story like this, I think it's a necessary movie to push the boundaries and to keep cinema moving forward, to keep these sorts of stories moving forward, and to influence the industry
from a progressive standpoint.
I think I'm going to go with an 8.2.
8.2. Okay.
It's not Nolan's best work, but it's one that I can't wait to revisit. It's one that I can't wait to dissect more. It's one that I can't wait to break down and understand and, maybe learn something new. Maybe I'll actually learn something about physics. I should have paid attention in high school, but
All right. So just to kind of have a little bit of discussion, just to kind of be fair, how would you separate the people from, because we both thought Olgar was not a good movie.
Yes.
However, a lot of the praise and a lot of the things that people were saying was that it was a progressive film.
Right.
And that's why they gave it high praise. How do you differ from something like this, praising it as a progressive film, to something like that as well? Because that also had cool action sequences.
Yeah.
Unlike in Tenet, which we don't really understand, we kind of understood that movie.
Yes.
It did not work. But both are sort of, I guess both are seen as progressive films, so to speak. So then how would you kind of balance both of those balls? Right.
I mean, I don't want to sound like that I'm the end all be all to when it comes to, making decisions on what makes a good story and what doesn't. I just know that the Old Guard for me the storytelling was just flat and boring. Like I
Right.
didn't care about what was going on. Whereas with something like Tenet, I did care what was going on. I just might have not completely understood every little aspect of it. With the old guard, like I do, like it is definitely is maybe it's you know, I do appreciate you know, the progressiveness of it, the fact that they had, you know, a gay couple front and center, the fact that the movie was made mainly by women, I think was one of the
like
was one of the things that
80%.
was 80%, which was, you know, which is awesome. It's great to see that. But just in turn, which like all that can be there, but if the movie doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for you, and that's
Right.
kind of it. And I'm not begrudging anybody that comes out and flat out says that they hated Tenet. I've seen people say that they love they've loved every Nolan movie but this one, and I get it because it's one of his most least accessible. That's why I said it's a really expensive art house movie, and it does things that, you know, typically aren't what you would normally get with these sorts of movies, you know, the type of storytelling that it is and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that I struggle with. And if you want to call me out for being a Nolan fanboy, that's totally fine. I would.
Well, that's why I wanted to have the discussion, because I think that needs to kind of be
no,
clarified, you know?
And if you want to say I'm a Nolan fan, I mean, I am a huge Nolan fanboy. Like I'm not saying that like it's that, you know, I think where people get things twisted is where someone's telling, like that'd be like me if I'm telling that you're wrong for that score, like because you don't appreciate Christopher Nolan, you don't appreciate his artistry, blah blah blah.
No one's ever wrong.
That's
everyone's opinion is the same, and however that opinion is perceived, that's totally up to that person.
Yes, which is kind of where I'm at. That's why if someone came up to me and said I fucking hated Tenet, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. I get why you didn't like it. You know what I mean? Like,
fine.
Like 100%. So, but for me,
even if someone came up to me and said I hated The Dark Knight, I'd be like,
well, all right, okay, yeah,
cool. What the fuck? But cool.
But still, you know what I mean? It's still that aspect. I'll never begrudge somebody for saying that they loved a specific movie, even if I think the movie's totally terrible and dog shit. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. You can't tell somebody that they're wrong, because everybody comes at a movie with different experiences, different backgrounds, different ways to look at things, and that's just how it goes. That's why I love movies so much, because you could look at a movie like I love Batman vs Superman. Everyone fucking hates that movie, but there's just things that happen.
You got
in that,
some people on there.
I know I got people, but there's things in that movie that I know. But there's just things in that movie that I look at a certain way that makes me love it, and I think the same thing goes for Tenet. I think I just dig like Nolan's vibe. I dig how he does things, and maybe that overshadows the flaws. And I'm also recognizing that he has flaws as a director. It's well known that he has his flaws like any other director does. He's not perfect. You know, you don't have to kiss his feet and think that he's the messiah of cinema. You know what I mean?
It's like, because like the Nolan stuff, it's like you have the Nolan stuff.
Yes.
And the Nolan stuff that works is so evident. Like we were just talking about the guns.
Right.
The gun, the bullets, that's Nolan.
Right.
But the same bag goes on the other side too. Like, where the Nolan issues are still the Nolan issues. Like, it still keeps going. It's still
there, yeah. But for me, like I stand by me giving this an 8.2. Like I stand by it, and that's just how it is. Like I said, like I'm gonna rewatch it. If I hated it, I probably wouldn't want to rewatch it. You know what I mean? But I want to rewatch it. I want to understand it. I want to keep going with this movie. And that's just how I am. And that's why I just love Christopher Nolan, because he does this all the time. He has these thought-provoking ideas, these big, ambitious ideas, and he's just going for it. And he's the only director, literally the only director, that can get $250 million to make a movie like this. Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said about that. There's something to appreciate about that. And when he comes out with his next one, it's going to be at the very top of my anticipated list, no matter what. So
I think no matter what,
and that's just how it is. You know what I mean?
Be like ready to see
I'm always going to take a ride with him and see if the ride is worth. You know,
that's what we're saying. Yeah. It's like he's earned this trust by this point. So they're like I highly doubt the studio heads at Warner Bros. Knew what the fuck they were reading when he gave him the script. Right. But they were like, dude, you've earned it. Go for it. Do your thing.
And I would also say, because of the response, I don't think he's going to be able to do something like this again. You know what I mean? I think some of the people...
I hope not. I hope that's not the case.
No, well, I mean, not that I think that he would, because I don't think he likes to... I mean, like, he does repeat themes, but I don't think he wants to do, like, another movie like this. Like, I think he wants to do something different, like, because he likes to do different things,
right?
So I think he wants to he'll probably work time in somehow, but I think he's going to tell a different story. It's going to be done a different way. But I even think if he came to a studio with something similar to Tenet, told in the same way, I think they'd be like, well, wait a minute now. You know?
I mean, I hope, but I mean, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. If for some reason does have a big effect on the next movie, because if people simply just don't want to go see it because they didn't like Tenet or for whatever reason, then that would be unfortunate because we know how Hollywood is. It's kind of like, what have you done for me lately?
Yes.
Now, what did you do for me 10 years ago?
Well, which is funny because that's why I'm seeing so many people just hate on Nolan for Tenet, and it's like, well, he just did Dunkirk 3 years ago, and Dunkirk was amazing, and
right,
you know
but
what
that's
I mean?
unfortunately just the industry.
That's just
it's
how it
really
is. Yeah.
Like, you know, you can have a series of bombs. You have one good one, and then boom, you're on top of the world
back,
again.
yeah.
It's literally vice versa. So hopefully it doesn't affect the. I mean, we're I think in a certain bubble where like doesn't matter whether this movie sucked or not, we were still been up front and center to see the next one.
Absolutely.
So I guess only time will tell with that. But yeah, I guess we'll just.
I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just invert back.
We'll invert back.
We'll invert back and wrap this.
This is definitely one where we can end the video and just be like, to be continued with a couple question marks.
Yeah.
With this movie, but all right, guys, that does it for us, Nerds Nation. Have you guys seen Tenet? Did you brave going out to the theater in a post-COVID world? If you did, comment on your thoughts. We'd love to dive in and talk with people about this movie because I feel like there's just going to be endless conversations about it. But as always, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube page. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else where you can see that big, beautiful FN logo.
Yep. And just a quick little side note, I thought the theater did a really good job handling the post-COVID situation. Sanitize all the stations, wipe down,
wear your mask.
They gave you everything. Like they handled all the refresh, because you know I love my snacks. I got my corn, my nachos, my drinks, and they literally handled everything. So I thought they did a good job with that. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We'll see you either tomorrow or yesterday. Who knows?
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't even happened
This
yet.
review didn't even happen.
The review does not even happen yet. Like we're talking. You're probably hearing us backwards right now.
Yeah.
But thank you and take care, Nerds Nation.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.